haven't said anything because my phone is big, but it's not that big. So I thought, I better just, since I have it, I might as well bring it. Sure, I've turned off.
Okay. Test. Can people hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay. What'd you say, Amanda? Yes. Should I call the meeting to order? Are we okay? Okay. All right, good evening. I'd like to call to order the February 9th meeting of the Onalaska Common Council. The time is 7:04, and the meeting notices were mailed and posted. Joanne, could you do the roll call for us? Here.
Here.
And Stephen Knott is in transit. We'll let the record show when he arrives. Thank you. Item 2 is the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand.
America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. This is a harassment-free forum. The City Council and subcommittee meetings shall be conducted in a courteous manner. Citizens, council, and committee members shall be allowed to state their positions in an atmosphere free of slander, insults, obscene remarks, threats of violence, or for the use of council or committee as a forum for politics. Sufficient warnings may be given by the Sergeant at Arms at any time during the remarks, and in the event that any individual shall violate the rules of decorum heretofore set forth, such person may then be cut off from comment or debate. Item 4 is public input. If you'd like to address the council, please state your name and address and limit your remarks to 3 minutes. Is there any public that would like to give input?
I'm not sure if this is where I should go here, but it's concerning the property at
Perfect.
hello?
Yep, just go ahead and state your name.
Oh,
And
Aaron Brooks.
Oh, okay. Oh, I'm so sorry. I had no way to know that. I apologize, sir. So where is
Sorry, I'm
Aaron?
having.
Aaron, go ahead.
Okay, I just wanted to, I don't know if you can hear me. I'm having trouble getting this to go
We
here.
can hear you.
Okay, excellent. Well, I am the property manager for the Shopco. in Unalaska, and we discussed last week some snow removal charges. Just wondering if the committee had a chance to, think about it a little bit more, or if this is even the forum that I would talk about, the decision made last week. So I just wanted to follow up with that and see what I could do.
Okay, thank you, Aaron. We'll note that you are present.
Thank you.
Okay, would anyone else like to address the Unalaska Common Council?
As well as a La Crosse County investigator for additional 14 years. I was on the city council for 6 years and council president for 2. The recent layoff of Onalaska city workers so that you could balance the budget to increase the staff on the police and fire department was disgraceful, shameful, and heartless. Never in the history of our city has a council laid off workers so to increase police and fire. Long before such action should have happened, there should have been a delay in hiring more police and fire. The city used to have funds set aside as backup, but somehow that got eliminated. So along comes COVID-19, and we are left with these kinds of decisions. Long before loyal city employees are laid off, there should have been a system of delaying, such as city equipment purchases or cuts in departments to keep these workers. I know each and every one of those employees that you let go and know them to be dedicated to the city of Onalaska and our community. They're vested their careers and lives with the city, and through no fault of their own have lost their jobs to support their families. You have other effects of your actions, which I doubt any of you have any idea. What about the remaining city employees? How do they feel? Secure with their job? No way. How about the divide now of all city employees versus police and fire employees? I guess you have no idea about that either. Have any of you asked for the activities of the police department, which shows what each officer does? I doubt it. Many things could have been done to save those you laid off. As a citizen of Onalaska, I'm ashamed of you. How about an example and reduce the council member's salary by 33% and the mayor's salary by 50%? After all, you're not doing this for the money. If you are, you don't belong here. Many of you on the council have full-time jobs, really don't need the funds. In the past, I have endorsed many of you who sit on this council now, and I'm ashamed of myself for doing so, and it won't happen again. It's too bad local news media only cares about La Crosse, so Onalaska citizens can't see what's going on here.
Thank you, Mr. Muth. Is there anyone else who would like to address the council?
Joe Chilson, 500 10th Avenue North, Onalaska. I'd like to address the council about the procedure at which those being laid off were laid off. This is a legislative body, and it should be discussed how that is doing instead of having the city administrator make the cuts and then just bringing them to the council. It smacks of the old Potomac two-step, and that shun the responsibility that is truly yours. And I was really heavy-hearted when I saw how that happened. I'm not, that might have been the absolute right thing to do. I'm not making any judgment there, but I think the process was flawed. And I think it was flawed because I think people were looking to be political with it instead of saying, yeah, we made the cuts. It's a tough job. Being on the board is a tough job, but you have to do it. That's what people vote for you for. You have to do the job. You can't lay it off on somebody else just because, oh, it's distasteful. I mean, there's a lot of things that are distasteful that this body is going to come to, have to decide on. So I would, expect that, that you take it upon yourself to make the tough decisions and not put it off on somebody else. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Chilson. Is there anyone else who would like to address the council? Second call for anyone who would like to address the council under public input. Amanda, do you see anyone online? Okay. This is the last call. If anyone else would like to address the council, now is the time to do so. Not seeing or hearing anyone, that part of the meeting is closed, and we'll move on to the report from the mayor. Item A is a discussion regarding the rave communications in the event of an emergency. Chief Eschbeck, are you available online?
Yes, Your Honor, I'm here.
So please let the record show that Stephen Knott has joined the meeting in person, and I'll turn this section over to Chief Eschbeck.
Thank you, Mayor. Recently, department heads and the mayor, we were in a meeting discussing basically crisis communication plans. And through that meeting, we developed the thought process of using our rave alert system as part of the process to keep key stakeholders informed during any type of disaster situation or various crises that may occur. We all understand and know how important it is for all members to stay as informed as possible. And we felt that the rave system could do just that between city staff that are working through the crisis and tight for time, and we could communicate with our other persons so that all of you could feel or stay informed on what is going on. We felt this was the most efficient way. So I asked the mayor if I could just have a few minutes tonight to bring everybody up to speed on what the rave system is, if you're not familiar with that, and then just talk about what our plans moving forward is with implementing that process. But just a very brief history. If you recall, maybe 2 years ago now, we moved over from one system to the rave system, and failing to remember the old system's name. But it's basically a mass communication system where we can, Code Red, yes, thank you. Where we can send out mass communications to the public or to city staff, anybody that we want to enter into the system. So with that system, it's set up very easily that we can send out text messages, we can send out emails, basically voice recorded messages or text converted to speech type messages, all in one fell swoop, essentially. So the system makes it very efficient to communicate to a group or mass amount of people. So our thought process is our city clerk, Joanne, she would take the lead on being the kind of the liaison communication between city staff working the crisis and all of you. And so essentially what we would like to do moving forward is, I believe Joanne has gathered a list of all of your phone numbers and email addresses that we are going to enter into the system. And at an upcoming training, we're going to sit down and enter that in, and then we're going to send out a practice alerts so that, one, we can see that the system is working and that you are receiving the messages, and so that you can see what the messages are when they come in. As a bigger picture, our thought process is if there is a crisis, what we would do, because obviously we don't expect all of you to be sitting in front of your emails just waiting for a communication. That's the beauty of this Rave alert system, is we can send out a mass text message alerting you to please check your email so that we can give you a much more detailed plan or information or update on what is going on with the crisis. And then we can continue to do so over whatever operational period that the crisis lasts. But we felt that was important that, you know, we all have the same information, all of you stay informed, and this would be the appropriate way to do so. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. And if anyone has any questions or concerns or comments, certainly we're open to that, or if I can answer anything, I'm happy to do so.
Thank you, Chief. Does anyone have any questions? So the next step is going to be for Joanne to be sending out some test messages. So everyone should be on the lookout for that and respond appropriately if asked. So we can double check our system so that we know we have it set up correctly, so that when an emergency really were to occur, some timely information, that we know it's all working correctly. So, thank you, Chief.
I think we have the training set up for February 22nd. So likely you would not get a test message until after that, just so you're not expecting it tomorrow, wondering, did I get it or not?
Okay, thank you. We'll move on with the agenda then. So now we're looking for recommendations for approval and/or possible action from the following committees, commissions, and boards. All items listed under the consent agenda are considered routine and will be enacted in one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member requests removal, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered in the order of business in the non-consent agenda.
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Alder, okay, Carrie?
I would like to pull off item number W under Parks, Recreation, and Library, the memorandum of understanding between Mayo Clinic and the City of Onalaska for the Community Garden Program.
Okay, we've removed item W under Parks and Recreation. Is there any other items the councilors would like removed? Thank you, Carrie. Back to you, Alder Stevens.
I move we approve the consent agenda.
Okay, we have a motion by Dan Stevens, second by Jim Olson to approve the consent agenda. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries unanimously. Moving on to the non-consent agenda, item 7 is a recap of items pulled from the consent agenda. We have item W from Parks, Rec, and Library, approval of a memorandum of understanding between the Mayo Clinic and the City of Onalaska for the Community Garden Program. Carrie?
I just wanted to pull this off because I know there's just been some changes to that. It did go through with the approval at the board. And I'd like to make a motion to approve the memorandum of understanding between Mayo Clinic and the City of Onalaska for the Community Garden Program with the review of the city attorney. So those changes are adequate.
Thank you. Is there a second? Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Alder Carrie Burmaster, seconded by Alder Jim Olson to approve the memorandum of understanding after being reviewed by the city attorney between Mayo Clinic and the City of Onalaska for the Community Garden Program. Under discussion, Amanda?
Just for further clarification, we had sent the agreement back and forth and thought we were both comfortable with the terms, and Mayo sent a significantly revised version back to us today. So what was approved at the park board agenda has since evolved. So we haven't had time to respond to that prior to tonight's meeting.
So you have not reviewed it?
Not what they sent this morning, no.
So perhaps we don't want to approve it then?
But I think we're all comfortable with the concept of it. So what we're asking for is just approval of an MOU, you know, with terms that I'm comfortable with on behalf of the city. If you'd like, we can hold it for a month as well.
Okay, what is the pleasure of the commission or of the council? Carrie?
I'm still fine approving it
Forward.
City attorney reviewing it.
Okay, so is the wording of the motion adequate? Okay. All right, all those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Item 8, Finance Committee, Alder Stevens.
Thank you, Your Honor. Under item 8A vouchers, the following is a list of monies expended since the last Common Council meeting dated January 12th, 2021. These payables include a percentage, 28.9230 in 2020 compared to 28.0038% in 2021 of taxes collected through January 31st, 2021 to the taxing entities. And the total is $10,235,095.01. And I move for approval.
Thank you. We have a motion by Alder Stevens, seconded by Alder Olson to approve the vouchers. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Under item 8B, City of Onalaska 2021 Capital Projects General Obligation Corporate Purpose Bonds and State Trust Fund Loan. 1, Resolution 2-2021, initial resolution authorizing $150,000 general obligation bonds for sanitary sewer projects. And I move for approval.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Alder Stevens, seconded by Alder Smith regarding Resolution 2-2021. Is there any discussion? Is it roll call? Okay, please answer when your name is called.
Gary Burmaster,
Aye.
Stephen Knott,
Aye.
Dan Stevens,
Aye.
Jim Olson, Tom Smith,
Aye.
Diane Wolf.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes unanimously.
Item 2, Resolution 3-2021, initial resolution authorizing $485,000 general obligation bonds for storm sewer projects, and I move for approval.
Second.
Motion by Alder Stevens, seconded by Alder Burmaster to approve Resolution 3-2021. Is there any discussion? Please answer when your name is called.
Tom Smith,
Aye.
Dan Stevens,
Aye.
Stephen Knott,
Aye.
Jim Olson, Gary Burmaster,
Aye.
Diane Wolf.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
Item 3, Resolution 4-2021, initial resolution authorizing $30,000 general obligation bonds for parks and public grounds project, and I move for approval.
Second.
Motion by Alder Stevens, seconded by Alder Wolf to approve Resolution 4-2021. Is there any discussion? Please answer when your name is called.
Stephen Knott,
Aye.
Jim Olson, Gary Burmaster,
Aye.
Diane Wolf,
Aye.
Dan Stevens,
Aye.
Tom Smith.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Item 4, Resolution 5-2021, initial resolution authorizing $2,435,000 general obligation bonds for street improvement projects, and I move for approval.
We have a motion on the floor by Alder Stevens, seconded by Alder Olson to approve Resolution 5-2021. Is there any discussion? Please answer when your name is called.
Dan Stevens,
Aye.
Stephen Knott,
Aye.
Jim Olson, Tom Smith,
Aye.
Diane Wolf,
Aye.
Gary Burmaster.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
Item 5, Resolution 6-2021, initial resolution authorizing $410,000 general obligation bonds for water system projects. I move for approval.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Alder Stevens, seconded by Alder Smith to approve Resolution 6-2021. Is there discussion? Please answer when your name is called.
Gary Burmaster,
Aye.
Stephen Knott,
Aye.
Diane Wolf,
Aye.
Jim Olson, Tom Smith,
Aye.
Dan Stevens.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Under item 6, Resolution 7-2021, directing publication of notice to electors relating to bond issues. And I move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion by Alder Stevens, seconded by Alder Burmaster to approve Resolution 7-2021. Is there discussion? Please answer when your name is called.
Diane Wolf,
Aye.
Dan Stevens,
Aye.
Stephen Knott,
Aye.
Tom Smith,
Aye.
Carrie Burmaster,
Aye.
Jim Olson.
Thank you. It passes unanimously.
Item 7, Resolution 8-2021, providing for the sale of $3,510,000 in general obligation corporate purpose bonds, and I move for approval.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Alder Stevens, seconded by Alder Burmaster to approve Resolution 8-2021. Is there any discussion? Please answer when your name is called.
Jim Olson. Tom Smith,
Aye.
Carrie Burmaster,
Aye.
Diane Wolf,
Aye.
Dan Stevens,
Aye.
Stephen Knott.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Under item C, Resolution 11-2021, to transfer to and from various departments in the 2020 general fund budget, and I move for approval.
Second.
Motion by Alder Stevens, seconded by Alder Wolf to approve Resolution 11-2021. Is there discussion? Please answer when your name is called.
Dan Stevens,
Aye.
Diane Wolf,
Aye.
Jim Olson, Carrie Burmaster,
Aye.
Stephen Knott,
Aye.
Tom Smith.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Item 8D, Resolution 12-2021, to transfer from the 2020 general fund budget to the special revenue fund, special projects. And I move for approval. Second.
Motion by Dan Stevens, seconded by Jim Olson to approve Resolution 12-2021. Is there discussion? You guys are at the same time. You can do the next one. Tom. No, you got it. You guys did it at the same time, so. Okay, any discussion on the resolution? Okay, please answer when your name is called.
Carrie Burmaster,
Aye.
Stephen Knott,
Aye.
Dan Stevens,
Aye.
Jim Olson, Tom Smith,
Aye.
Diane Wolf.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Dan?
Under item 8E, Resolution 13-2021, to transfer from the 2020 general fund budget to the special revenue fund equipment replacement fund, I move for approval and reserve my time.
Thank you.
Second.
Motion by Alder Stevens, seconded by Alder Smith to approve Resolution 13-2021. Under discussion, back to Alder Stevens.
Thank you, Your Honor. Through F&P, with this resolution, it came to light that there was $435,000, which we were looking to put in the equipment replacement fund, which at first blush, that's a good thing because we want to build up that fund. However, in light of some of the events that happened last year, it got me thinking to events that we've had gentlemen speak to us today. And so I want to accomplish two things with this. I think that it would be in the public interest to discuss how this $435,000 came into existence, where it relates in our budget, considering the other implications that have happened through the year. And then on an unrelated note, I would like to make an amendment. So I'm hoping that either our finance director or city administrator could talk about the dollar amount, how it is related to the budget, and with specific reference to some of the staffing issues that we've had over this year. I don't know who's better suited to.
Let's start with Eric.
I guess I'll ask if Fred is available too to speak on some of the more specific numbers.
He pointed to you, so.
Just be ready. The act of transferring funds from the general fund to the special, to the equipment replacement fund is something that has long history here in Onalaska, precedes me by decades. What it really speaks to is the department heads and the departments practicing sound fiscal practices throughout the year. Other places that I have been, especially when you get towards the end of the year, becomes a race to spend your budgeted money. Wherever it may lie within your departments, so you start getting purchases to justify your budget for the next budget cycle. To the credit of the departments and the staff here, you do not have that. You have people budgeting appropriately at the beginning of the budget cycle, being wise and spendthrift throughout the year with the tax dollars of the taxpayers, and thus able to generate funds that can be sent to the equipment replacement fund. Likely, as Fred explained to me earlier, the equipment replacement fund had a capital expense fund title in years past. That got confusing though, because we have the capital improvements project which, as we just did, generally borrow for those long-term items for 5 years or 20 years, depending on what the item is. So it's become a equipment replacement fund, basically for non-capital items, but items that require purchases throughout the year that you can't really borrow for. And being in a capital expense fund, it is something that's generally levied for on an annual basis in other communities, meaning computers, laptops, radios, anything that you wouldn't want to put on your own personal credit card because it may, it may have a life cycle shorter than, the 5 years that we would normally borrow from the trust funds for. Other communities on an annual basis levy for those purchases. Because of the practices from the historically in this organization, that's not been the case, that we're able to move money from the savings in the given year to this equipment replacement fund for this purchase, and thus avoiding having to levy on the taxpayers money to do so. And in fact, it is a way of reducing the levy in future years by not having to levy that. So that's what the equipment replacement fund is. The numbers fluctuate depending on how good of a year or bad of a year we are having. But the numbers, 200 to 300,000 seem to have been common since I've been here, Fred. Would that be a correct statement? So we're on target for that under normal circumstances. To answer the question then, why is this amount so much bigger this particular year? And there's many reasons, and Frank can speak to that, but I'll speak to the obvious one, is there was a round of layoffs that occurred at the end of this year with employees that for the 2020 budget, did allow that additional amount to grow beyond what would have been normal practice. Keeping in mind, however, that the layoffs that occurred in 2020 were due to the constraints of the 2021 budget. And not the reaction where we were in 2020, based on the changes that we had made, and the predictions that we made, the grants that we received, we were able to still come in and put thereabouts the same 300,000 that we would normally put into the equipment replacement fund. This one's just higher because of those last 2 months of wages and benefits that were foregone for those employees, and that built that number higher. Equipment replacement is a special revenue fund. It is not the general fund. And thus the funds in the equipment replacement fund cannot be used for ongoing expenses, but for one-time expenses, not for operating expenses. I'm not sure if we covered all your.
So would it be an accurate statement that it would be poor fiscal policy if we were to use those funds in lieu of going to the equipment replacement fund, if we earmark those towards salaries or, trying to bring people back or replace them, we're kicking that bucket of the salary shortfall down the road, and then we would have in fact spent down our reserves, which could have negative implications on the bond market. I mean,
that is correct.
So from a fiscal policy standpoint, it would be inappropriate to use those funds for anything other than these type of expenses.
In fact, in 2021, it would increase our expenses, not increase our revenues for the year, putting us worse off for 2022.
Okay, thank you. I would like to bring an amendment. However, if there's if people want to discuss this point before I shift this a little bit.
Is there any other counselors that would like to comment on this topic? Okay, Alder Stevens, you have the floor.
All right, thank you again. So I put a lot of thought into what the best use of this funds are, and our equipment replacement fund compared to other municipalities is as a percentage of, it's a higher percentage, meaning that we're a little bit better off. And I got to thinking about what is the best use for this? Should we put it in that fund? Or is there another way that we could leverage that? And it struck me that what kind of keeps me up at night right now with the city of Onalaska is the lack of some of the agreements that we're working on with other municipalities. I think it would behoove us to set money aside for purposes that would better position us in the future for some of the long-term issues that we're going to face. And I think that would be best suited with having monies available for land acquisition. So I'm going to make an amendment to the resolution, and that is going to be to transfer from the 2020 general fund budget to the special revenue fund equipment replacement fund with the entire amount to be restricted for the purchase of potential land acquisition. And we can flesh that out in discussion if somebody would care to do a second.
I will second that.
Okay, we have amendment on the floor by Alder Stevens, seconded by Alder Wolf, to restrict the money outlined in Resolution 13-2021 for land acquisition. Discussion. Alder Stevens, and then Alder Burmaster. I thought maybe you wanted to clarify.
I've been talking a lot, so if I would cede to, yield to Alder Burmaster.
Okay, Alder Burmaster.
I just had a question, clarification. So you're restricting the total amount?
Not the,
Of 435,000?
I would say yes, but that could be debated.
Well, is that what your amendment is?
Is that what you anticipated?
Yes.
That's what I took it to be. When
Yes.
you
Okay,
said
and then my question to Fred then is if we restrict that for land acquisition, that is the only thing that we could use that money for and for nothing else unless we went back and unrestricted it, correct? Is that right? Yep, okay. And that would be just a simple motion from the council to do that? If we would need to do that?
What we could do is we just tweak the resolution 13 by 2021 to not only transfer it to the equipment replacement fund, but put it in a designated land acquisition fund.
And I'm okay with that because I said, you know, if things would change or there's something that would come up that we feel was astronomical that we needed that money for, I just wanted to make sure we had an avenue to it if we would need to, but I'm comfortable with it being in land acquisition. I think that's a great place to have it, seeing that we might be moving forward in that direction at some point in time.
So instead of being special revenue fund, equipment replacement fund, it would be special revenue fund, land acquisition fund?
No, it'd be the equipment replacement fund, but designated as a land acquisition.
That doesn't lock you into it.
I'm sorry?
You could change your mind later, right, if you don't.
Oh, absolutely.
That was why I didn't hear yet.
Next council meeting.
You would have to come back to council, that's all.
I had to kind of, we could reverse that anytime.
Okay, so for clarity, let's go back to our finance director, Mr. Bueller.
Okay, I also handed out tonight, so I thought it was kind of important to the subject matter. This document I handed out tonight shows what the city has done for the last 7 years in the equipment replacement fund. You can see that transferring the dollars into the equipment replacement fund, and what we do indirectly reduce the tax levy. I think, I don't have it in front of me, but I want to say 200. This past year, we lowered it 202,000. The year before, we lowered it 225,000 out of the, and utilizing some of those dollars instead of borrowing 280,000, for example, in 2020, we used 225 of our reserve. And this past year, instead of using 294,000 of a levy, we used 202,000 of our reserve. So what we're doing is we're utilizing those dollars by lowering the tax levy. And I think this is going to get more and more important as we slide into 2022. 2022, as I think all of us are very easily seeing, this pandemic is not going to go away too fast. interest rates are not going to climb. And we are going to, in 2022, have these positions annualized. And so it's going to be challenging, but I feel comfortable that this fund will help us, and hopefully we'll get some kind of turnaround come 2022.
Okay, thank you, Fred. We'll go to Alder Wolf.
I have a question for Fred. I don't know if it's on here. I'm just not ready. What is the approximate balance of our current designated equipment balance?
The undesignated balance is approximately close to $1 million.
Close to $1 million. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, Alder Knott.
Does that include this other influx or that's
No, that was before.
even before? Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments? So the motion on the floor is an amendment to the original motion of Resolution 13-2021, which would just add that for Resolution 13-2021, the entire funds would be designated for future land acquisition. Alder Stevens.
Just to kind of clarify why I wanted to go down this road is, my feeling is that the negotiations with the city of La Crosse have really not moved since we started talking about this agreement. It appears that we're kind of at impasse where they want to tax our residents to pay for their parks, their recreation, their parking, their library, and their lacrosse center. I am comfortable if we were to do business that monies that Onalaskans paid went into the utility itself. You could argue that, I mean, we have an obligation to do that, but I do not believe that our taxpayers should be paying for our library and their library. I don't think they should be paying for our Omni Center and their lacrosse center. I don't think that, you get the point. So I think we need to have some contingencies and we need to be prepared and start, if there's an opportunity to purchase some land, we can utilize that rather than whack that whole amount over to the utilities in the event that we have to proceed and build our own wastewater plant. I'm wishful that we could make an equitable agreement with the city of La Crosse. I am, however, not hopeful. And in the event that the impasse continues, I think we need to start laying the groundwork for some of the options. So that's the purpose of my amendment, and I hope that it gets support.
Thank you, Alder Stevens. Is there any other questions or comments? Okay, let's go ahead and vote on the amendment then. The amendment is to add the designation for future land acquisition to the rerouting of this funds. So let's vote on the amendment. If you're in favor of the amendment, please say aye when your name is called.
Stephen Knott,
Aye.
Jim Olson, Gary Burmaster, Diane Wolf, Dan Stevens,
Aye.
Tom Smith.
Aye.
Okay, so the amendment passes unanimously. Is there any discussion before we go back to voting on the resolution as amended? Okay, so this will be in favor of Resolution 13-2021 as amended. Please answer when your name is called.
Tom Smith,
Aye.
Dan Stevens,
Aye.
Stephen Knott,
Aye.
Jim Olson, Gary Burmaster, Diane Wolf.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Item F, Dan?
Thank you again, Your Honor. Item 8F, Resolution 14-2021, to transfer from the 2020 Special Revenue Fund, Special Projects Restricted Fund balance to the Enterprise Fund, Omni Center Fund. And I move for approval.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Alder Stevens, seconded by Alder Burmaster to approve Resolution 14-2021. Is there discussion? Fred?
Okay. We discussed the reason I'm jumping in here because we have no dollar value put on this yet. Through the Finance and Personnel meeting, There are some unanswered questions before you tonight as a financial statement of the Omni Center, of which those questions now have been answered. I'm going to refer to the page numbers on the bottom. If you go to page number 2, prior to these modifications, what has happened is we got a clean, clear picture of the room tax for the year of 2020, which now put us at an $88,332,000 deficit. From that deficit, we still need to modify the vacation sick leave adjustments based on accrued vacation and sick leave with the years of service. We also have accrued payroll. So it'll put us approximately $93,932 as a deficit. If I could slide now to page 3. Page 3 represents the footnote. Number 1 is we had transferred into the Omni Center a total of $134,374.91. Of that, $56,700.91 came from the room tax dollars. Special Projects Fund contributed $63,174 as budgeted. The tourism also transferred $14,500 as budgeted, totaling $134,374.91. Note that $44,949 less came from the tourism dollars based on the dollars through this COVID process. Turn to page number 6, if you would. Page 6 represents the sales of $5,670,090.98 in sales compared to our budget of $10,165,000. And as you may or may not know, Omni Center gets 1% of the sales. So we had budgeted $101,650, of which we only got, as we had outlined earlier, the room tax, just a second. Room tax dollars was $56,700.91. Continuing to move on with the, with the sales down from because of the COVID, $4,494,910 in sales from the motels. Going on to the last page, I think there may have been some discussion or not sure, because a lot of times I will say things in reference to the Special Projects Fund, restricted funds, and you're probably saying, okay, that's nice, but where is it? This is a snapshot of our fund balance sheet in Fund 204. You'll see that arrow. Those are the dollars that are left for some of those that have been here. We originally had $1.5 million in this fund, and Jim Benesh, I think, was one of the first ones to start, as well as other council members, to utilizing some of those dollars to buy in capital project items instead of going into the bond market. That is our balance as of 12/31/2019. Dollars were used in 2020, which will be reflected off that, but that is the dollars that we need to do via this resolution tonight would be coming from, and we'll lower that. These are designated fund balances that you see here in Fund 204.
So Fred, what is the number that needs to go on resolution 14-?
If you wanted to round it, I think it was 94,000.
93,932, is it?
Yeah. But keep in mind is if there still ends up being a small deficit, it isn't going to be much.
Should I amend the motion, or is the dollar amount?
932. I guess that's a question for Amanda. Do we need to amend the motion to include this dollar amount? Okay, so Dan, you want to go ahead and make an amendment then?
Sure, I will amend my motion. Resolution 14-2021 to transfer from the 2020 Special Revenue Special Projects Restricted Fund balance to the Enterprise Fund Omni Center Fund in the amount of $93,932.
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Alder Steve, or amendment by Alder Stevens, seconded by Alder Burmaster. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the amendment, which includes the dollar amount,
Should we do roll call?
please answer when your name is called.
Carrie Burmaster,
Aye.
Stephen Knott,
Aye.
Diane Wolf,
Aye.
Jim Olson, Tom Smith,
Aye.
Dan Stevens.
Aye.
Okay, so the amendment passes unanimously. Back to the original motion to approve Resolution 14-2021 as amended. Is there any more discussion on this? Fred, are you good? All right. All those in favor of the resolution, answer when your name is called.
Stephen Knott,
Aye.
Jim Olson, Carrie Burmaster,
Aye.
Diane Wolf,
Aye.
Dan Stevens,
Aye.
Tom Smith.
Okay, motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Alder Stevens. Item 9, Judiciary Committee, Alder Knott.
Yes, 9A, this is for ordinance 1697-2021 to amend section 31, chapter 3 of Title 2 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Onalaska relating to joint municipal court. The reason this is on the non-consent agenda is because the Judiciary Committee did not meet this month prior to this meeting. Amanda, would you like to discuss this?
This is just a very small change. We're removing the word Town of Holland. And so it came to our attention that there are only certain times under statute that you can change the members of a joint municipal court. And so unknowingly, our joint municipal court became uncertified. And so we're in the process of fixing that. And as part of that, every municipality has to readopt their JMC ordinance, making sure that the members are up to date. So the only change from what's presently in our code is that the removal of the words Town of Holland.
I'll entertain a motion.
I'll second.
Okay. Well, I will make a motion to pass ordinance 1697-2021 then.
So we'll say that,
Second that.
we'll say we have a motion from Alder Knott, seconded by Alder Smith to approve ordinance 1697-2021. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Item 10, Administrative Committee, Alder Smith.
Attachment 10A, same reason as Steve mentioned, the administrative committee did not meet prior to this meeting, so we just added it here. So I'd recommend that we approve the Class B beer and Class C liquor wine license for Mario's Chicago Beef and Hot Dogs LLC, doing business as Gino's Beef, Chicago Beef and Hot Dogs, 306 Sand Lake Road, Onalaska, from February 10th, 2021 through June 30th, 2021.
Okay, we have a motion by Alder Smith, seconded by Alder Wolf to approve the Class B and Class C license as described. Is there any discussion? Alder Stevens.
I guess I don't have a problem with this per se, but I just noticed that we're looking at a beer and wine license for, it's a hot dog restaurant. And I guess I'm not sure, or if somebody could educate me, if somebody applies, if a restaurant applies for a liquor license, do we just kind of automatically grant it, or is it taken into account the type of restaurant it is? I love Chicago hot dogs, not the relish so much, but it seems weird that you would go there and get wine. So, like, for example, if McDonald's were to have McBrewskis, would we just kind of automatically perfunctory put it through because they're a good corporate citizen, or is there more criteria that we should be looking at?
Okay, let's refer to our city clerk for a description. Joanne?
Actually, I think I'll defer to Amanda on that, on your reasons that you can deny an application.
Could you repeat that? I'm sorry.
He just wants you to summarize the process, like how we have one available and.
Why would we decide that this is an appropriate place for a liquor license, or why would we decide it's not a good place?
Well, ultimately is at the discretion of the council as to whether or not you want to approve it or deny it. Typically, I would suggest having a reason that you would want to deny it, because you would be setting a precedent.
Alder Knott?
Generally, it's a legal product. It's not in a residential area, things like that. I mean, I don't have a problem with it. I mean, you probably have to ask the owner why it is they want to sell liquor there, but I don't have any question on it.
Okay, let's get some input from our city administrator, Eric Reinflush.
Joanne reached out when we received the request. It would be our first one that we have in the city, correct?
Right, with the Class C wine.
Yeah. So it's not a common request that we have, and, but with my previous background in the beverage industry, it is relatively common for us, I would say, not necessarily hot dog places, but for smaller restaurants to add, when they can, the convenience of having beer or wine. If anybody has gone downtown, a good example would be Polito's Pizza downtown. You can go get a slice of pizza. My kids love it there. We haven't gone there obviously in over a year, but it's a fun place. But if I chose to do so, they have a small cooler with beer and, wine by the mini bottle as well. It's an add-on. It's something that they can, give to their customers. It's not a common event, but it's quite a few of my customers were that way. They had a restaurant, especially in the state. They sort of like, the ability to offer an additional beer or wine with their food. I've heard my favorite customer was in Sheboygan. It's a diner, and they're known for their breakfast, but they had the beer and wine liquor, so they could do, mimosas with brunches and stuff. They just had a little bottle of champagne that they would mix with you for wine. So it's unusual here, but it is common in the state for just the convenience of being able to offer that to the customers. Amanda can confirm in terms of decision-making guidance here. The best time to deny is that application, if you so choose to do so. Once that license is granted, it's very difficult to remove. The standards are fairly high to be able to pull a license away. But as Joanne indicated there, if you choose to deny at this point in time, you'd like to have a stated reason for denial that would uphold any challenges that they would make.
Typically with this license, is this a dine-in situation, or can they grab a Chicago dog and a Miller Lite and take off?
They would have to consume the beverages inside the building.
Are there any other comments or questions? Alder Stevens?
I just said I don't have a problem with this per se. It just seemed a little unorthodox, and I was curious as to the methodology.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Okay, the motion on the floor is to approve the Class B beer and Class C wine license as described. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Item 11, Board of Public Works. Alder Wolf.
Thank you, Your Honor. Item 11A, deny request to change sidewalk snow removal charges for 9366 State Trunk Highway 16. It was on a 4-to-1 vote, the recommendation at Board of Public Works last week to deny the request, and that is a motion.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Alder Wolf. Is there a second? Motion has been seconded by Alder Stevens. Any discussion? Not hearing any discussion. All those in favor of denying the request, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Diane?
Thank you. Item 11B, deny request to change sidewalk removal charges for 902 Oak Timber Drive. This was a 5-0 vote. Also, we're looking to get more information from Jared Holter, but it was a recommendation of Board of Public Works. That is a motion to deny request to change sidewalk snow removal charges for 902 Oak Timber Drive.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Okay.
Okay, the motion was by Alder Wolf, seconded by Alder Smith. Have we gotten any more information from that resident? Does any?
Your Honor, this is Jared. Yes,
Jared, is that you?
that is me. Can you hear me?
Yes. Can you give us some information on this one?
I did leave a message on the phone number for Mr. Gleiss on Wednesday and have not heard anything back.
Okay. Thank you for trying. Alder Knott?
Okay, and now, and I'm satisfied with that. I was one of the individuals who was pushing for more information because there may have been what I deemed was a legitimate reason for this. I just want to, I guess, voice my own view on that we do need to consider when there are extreme circumstances, sometimes real emergencies do happen, and we do need to consider that. But in this case, it looks like we do not have any further information, so I'm good.
Thank you. Eric, did you have something? And then Alder Wolf after that.
I believe the previous item, the 9366 State Trunk Highway, the original speaker this evening.
Yep. If we had any questions.
Any questions? Okay.
Okay.
Just mentioned that he spoke initially to if any questions, and I don't recall exactly where we were with.
Okay, Alder Wolf?
Thank you, Your Honor. And also just note for the record, per public voting records, please note that there are 4 registered voters at this 902 Oak Timber Drive. 2 maybe of college age, but 2, I believe, I don't have for a fact, but I know that there are 2 registered voters of adult age as of the November election. So just extra information. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any other discussion? Alder Stevens?
Alder not just kind of brought up that there potentially could be some extreme circumstances which we should take into consideration. I don't know that now is the right time to do that, but I like what would be the extreme circumstances, or what would be circumstances where we would waive that? Because I'm thinking like the ultimate extreme circumstance would be if somebody owned a property and they died. The city is still sending out labor and time to clear the sidewalk, and if the person were not paying because they were physically not, here on the earth, what would we do in that case? We're not going to just keep plowing it for free. I think that we would assess the costs, and it would go against the tax bill. So anything less than death, if we're still going to, assign the fee, or I'm not sure what those circumstances would be. I mean, they could exist. I think that if there was a proactive request prior to the work being done, I mean, I'd be amenable. I mean, we're a reasonable body, but I would be hesitant to not charge the fee unless it was a really darn good reason and there was a proactive effort on the front end.
Exactly. And that's what the discussion was at the committee meeting, and that's why it was on the non-consent agenda, because we were trying to get more information, which we didn't get. Alder Knott?
So I think it would be counterproductive to try to codify each and every type of emergency situation. As a body, we're a decision-making body. That's why we're here, is to hear any extenuating circumstances on something like this or anything else for that matter, and then through a vote to make a decision. But additionally, though, certainly we need to be charging the actual cost of snow removal, because if we're doing that, it needs to be reimbursed. It's any additional fees that I'm concerned with, above and beyond the actual cost, if there's that extreme situation that we all were, through a majority vote, to agree that it applied.
Thank you, Alder Knott. Okay, any other discussion on this topic? Okay, so the motion on the floor was to deny the request to change the charges for the 902 Oak Timber Drive. The motion on the floor is to deny. So all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion carries unanimously.
And item 11C, approval of resolution 10-2021, preliminary resolutions regarding assessments for concrete sidewalk and concrete apron at various locations. I move to approve this evening resolution 10-2021 per our packet.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Alder Wolf, seconded by Alder Olson, to approve the preliminary resolution 10-2021. Is there any discussion? Not seeing any discussion. Please answer when your name is called.
Dan Stevens,
Aye.
Diane Wolf,
Aye.
Jim Olson, Carrie Burmaster,
Aye.
Stephen Knott,
Aye.
Tom Smith.
Aye.
That resolution passes unanimously. Thank you. Item 12, report from our city administrator, Mr. Reinfleisch.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First time on the agenda under my report is discussion regarding format of future meetings, virtual versus hybrid. One point of question may be, how about in person? So I'd like to begin by simply saying with the technology improvements that started a little shaky today, but we seem to be making progress today, and our mics are working. Effectively, we are in person. I would anticipate any meeting that we have using our meeting rooms here, council chambers, or across the hallway. In-person meetings effectively become hybrid meetings, for the ability to have public to access the meetings, both to not only to watch but actually participate. I would suggest that hybrid is really kind of, we can call it in person, but what we mean is using technology also that people may access the meeting as well. And virtual, for this case, means purely remote. That there's no congregating of the committee or the council meeting. So at this point, the current status is began in December, carried over into January, and made a statement last time that we would continue for the council meetings to be in-person meetings using our technology going forward. And at this point, the committee meetings right now are virtual. Both committee meetings that are purely staffed by members of the council, as well as those that have public members as well. But that is what is up for discussion this evening. That's sort of the current plan right now. But if there is, like I said, discussion items, so if anything that you would have input on how that works, this would be the great opportunity to do so.
Thank you, Eric. Are there any alder persons that would like to comment on this? Yeah, I was kind of having trouble understanding as well, but just to recap, what I heard Eric to say was that at this point, his intention is that we would continue with the in-person meeting for Common Council, which is really a hybrid because there's both in-person and virtual attendance, but he would like to continue the committee meetings as being virtual. So this is the opportunity for the council to discuss that if you would like to.
Virtual is we're not meeting together at all. We're just on the laptops and meeting. Whereas the hybrid is where we are now. We are meeting in person. So call in without being present. That's what a hybrid is. It's really in person, but using our technology.
Expect from us, and that's what we should be doing, in my opinion. There's really is no reason for us not to be doing this in person, in my opinion.
For committees and council.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. Alder Knott?
Yeah, no, I agree, and I got no problem with the hybrid solution to that for now and into the future, but I mean, it's confusing, myself even. I mean, last week we had a special Common Council, and I almost came in for that, and I found out we weren't supposed to come in for it, and then today we have the Common Council, and I didn't come in, and that's like, no, you got to get here, because it's just all confusing to me on what it is. I just think that it would be much clearer if we just met like we had been before. I mean, we got the masks and all that again too, but I just don't see any reason not to. But certainly the hybrid is a good solution for other people.
Alder Burmaster?
And I would agree with that conversation. I would not have a problem with meeting in person for the meetings. I do think the virtual is a good option for the people, watching. I think it would also be a good option for us if we could not make it to the meeting. Like, say you were on vacation or something, you would have a way to connect in, where it wouldn't be like you'd have to miss the meeting. You'd have that option to check in. So I guess meeting in person as much as possible as we can. But I said, I think, most of us make all the meetings, so it would be more in person.
Okay, Alder Wolf?
Thank you, Your Honor. So I have to agree that I would prefer to meet in person for council members for committees and that we are chaired, and also for council. Eric, what are your thoughts as far as those committees that are primarily, and I guess that's a question also for council, that are primarily community-driven members? Are we also looking across the board, all committees, commissions, and boards, or just ones going, in person that are primarily attended by council members? I mean, I kind of see them as two different things, so.
Eric, go ahead.
I think ultimately, certainly A and J and F and P, because their subcommittees made up of your own memberships. But ultimately, all the committees do report to you to some degree, with the exception of court and plan commission, correct?
Zoning.
Those, there'd be some that aren't subcommittees technically of the council. I would suggest that whatever procedure the council decides for any committee that is a subcommittee of the council would follow.
So it would be,
Even if they're predominantly, Parkers Rec come to mind, for example, predominantly public members, but their decisions are subject to council approval. So it's technically a subcommittee of the council.
Yeah, we're having trouble here. It can kind of hear you, and then it just kind of goes into a,
I used to think it was me, but I think it's that spot.
yeah, it must be that location has this weird thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so we haven't heard from, okay, what I'm hearing Eric to say is we would come in person for all of our council type subcommittee meetings. And then what we're now kind of talking about is what about the more citizen driven ones like CDA, Park Board, where we have a representative, but it's primarily the community members. Is that what you were saying, Eric?
Right, but I'll try not to move my head. Maybe that'll help. Any committee that ultimately is subject to,
At the podium, because I think.
Yeah, I could hear when they
the
were at,
podium.
when Bob
I
was.
want to
up
hear
there.
what you have to say. I'm sorry. Thank you.
we'll see, any committee that is,
That is so
There we
weird.
go. There we go.
I have no
It's
difference.
Or
Perfect.
that place, it's that location.
Yeah, perfect.
it's also tough to hear over here, by the way. So
That's what it is.
any committee that, in my opinion, any committee that is subject to the final decision of the council, I think the council has the authority and the right to say how the meetings would go. CDA does not ultimately report to council, so that'd be one that they would make their own decision. But like Parks and Rec does, ultimately, even though it's community driven, I think you would be able to kind of dictate the meeting conditions, hybrid versus virtual.
Okay, we haven't heard from Alder Stevens on this topic. Well, I just want to give you another chance.
Encourage him.
I know. Limit your comments to 3 minutes or less.
We're actually
please.
making good time here.
Oh, wait, you've already used your 3 minutes. Let's vote.
So my personal preference is to meet in person, and I would argue that I think citizens as elected officials, there's maybe a little higher expectation that we should meet in person. I think that we can safely do that. But that said, the hybrid is, as Alder Burmaster pointed out, if you can't make the meeting, that's a great way to participate and still make the meeting. Additionally, to Alder Wolf's point, if there are some citizen-driven committees and people on those that are not employees of the city of Onalaska, if they're not comfortable with meeting in person, I wouldn't want to discourage them or have them not participate for whatever their personal safety concerns are. So I think that the hybrid model this is technology that we're getting little blips and sometimes there's nuances, but ultimately we're getting better at it. And I think it's a tool that we could use even in a post pandemic world for input. If people, you've got a family at home and you want to give some public input and you can't get down here, that's a way that they can just kind of dial in, speak their piece and then go feed their families. So I don't know that I'd ever get rid of the technology, but we should be here.
Okay, so I'm hearing that to be the consensus, that the city council would like the meetings to be hybrid with the understanding that we will normally be here in person with the understanding that occasionally we may have something come up where we'll attend virtually. Okay, and that's doable, right, Eric? We have the technology, we have the ability to do that going forward. Okay, Amanda.
I just have one clarification, and I did want to, just because it's somewhat on topic, let you know that we did enable live transcription tonight, and so you can't see that on your end, but our meetings are now being transcribed live on Zoom for those with hearing impaired. And so that's a new feature we were able to offer tonight. As far as having all hybrid meetings, committee, subcommittees, I guess, would it be possible to continue with all committees meeting in chambers? We do have the best technology in chambers and obviously can better space out. So I'm asking if there's consensus on that as well.
I will say, I think I'm seeing everyone nod their head yes, but then I'm questioning, I thought that we did upgrade all the technology in room 112. Oh, the space. Okay, 100%, yeah. And I think even on like A and J, like our big meeting night, we have those staggered enough that we can roll that through this room, probably. Okay, any other comments, questions, suggestions? Okay, back to you, Eric.
The next item is item B, update on sanitary sewer service agreement. As indicated earlier, I do not have any update on that. We have not heard back from the DNR this afternoon regarding our reply to the request for the variance from the administrative code by the city of La Crosse. When I do receive any information, I will likely, instead of waiting for the next committee meeting, I will email them out to you, the information out to everybody.
Any questions on that one? Comments? Okay, thank you for the update.
And next item, item C, update on city hall hours. To go back a little bit, this week marks the 1-year anniversary of the first COVID-19. Should I stand up here again? I see you leaning in. This week represents the 1-year anniversary of the first positive COVID-19 case. The first week in February, positive case in Wisconsin, excuse me. And just kind of looking at the current news again, we have a mixture of good news and bad news. Good news is that statewide our counts are falling. We're getting close again in the county to sort of guidelines that we're looking for. Bad news is this also now marks the first week that the new variants B117, I think it is, out of the UK, which is highly contagious, is also been found in Wisconsin as of today. So to a large degree, what I'm saying is, as Alder Stevens, you indicated earlier, we're a long ways from this being just back to what we remember a year ago. So going back to that year, obviously City Hall shut down initially, reopened and reopened under guidelines established by council, giving the city administrator authority, and the guidelines, as you will recall, an email that went out that established the colors red, green, and yellow, basically all based on the rolling 7-day positive average count in the county of La Crosse. So we're not using anybody's opinion to say open or shut. It is a number that exists out there, and that number is 25 per 100,000 on a 7-day average. We haven't hit that number yet. And so throughout this year, at least through end of summer, we've been following those guidelines, and that established the partial city hall hours from 4 hours in the morning on one day, afternoon the next day, closed on Friday. And again, even while we were closed, city hall business was being transacted. Whatever tools we had necessary including at one point in time, Carrie, you remember this probably as fondly as I do, meaning not at all, the doors being guarded and open. That was a solution that did not work when we had the election and people were voting. And so the next election, even though we're still on the same guidelines, we granted an exception for the clerk's office to be open 8 to 5. Effectively, that means the building is open 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, because of the election purposes. That then was followed up by another election and then tax bills from December and January. And so end of January, meeting with department heads of staff and departments and seeking input, it was decided that because we had so many exceptions to the rule of being the rolling, the city hall, the building itself being closed on those times, we had so many exceptions for finance and clerk's office that we were just going to go ahead and open city hall, the building up 8 to 5. That led to a conversation about marketing that, and this is where the timing was really bad. Amanda, in one of her many hats that she was wearing, did a graphic design quick. We went back and forth a couple of days. She changed the color to the Onalaska purple. That went out after any conversation we had about having this on the agenda tonight, which surprised everybody. I understand that. But the conversation started before we had the conversation about having hours put on the agenda this way. So I'll apologize for that it was not meant to establish a new change, that was meant to communicate a change that had already occurred prior to our conversations about that the building was open and specific hours are 8 to 5 for the clerk and treasurer's offices in that suite. So as of now, that is the hours, but I do understand there's been, and this is why I'd like to discuss it, some concern about how that is spoken to the public, that the public may be confused that City Hall being open 8 to 5, does that mean every department's all the time is available at 8 to 5? And so if you'd like to discuss that or ask any questions, I'm here to answer those questions or seek input again as to what direction you would like to go for those other departments.
Okay, thank you for that. History lesson, Eric. Any questions or comments that anyone has? Alder Burmaster.
I guess, the thing I have a problem with is I think we need to be open for the citizens. And I'm not saying we need to be open 8 hours a day, but I'm saying, they've got the restaurants are at 50% capacity. I think we should be open 4 hours a day, every department here. I think we should be providing the citizens with some type of service here. And I think by not having that done, we're communicating a different thing to them. And I know we say, we're here, we're working, we're doing all of this, but that's not what they see. I think they need to see an open door, and then they need to see an open door to every department. And we're going to be going, by June, with the vaccinations and things, we're going to be back to normal. I think we've got to start, somewhere, maybe we go 4 hours this month, you go 5 hours the next month, go 6 hours, 7, work our way up to the 8 hours. I'm not saying open your doors 8 hours a day, but we've got to make an effort to do something. It's been it's going on a year. And all the other businesses in this community are making an effort. You don't go to the grocery store and find the produce department closed or the meat department closed or the bakery closed and have to call for an appointment, and I can get one here at 8 o'clock and one here at 10 o'clock and one at 5 o'clock, and I gotta make 5 trips to the grocery store to get my grocery shopping done. That's what's happening here. Because if they need to go to another department, they have to call for an appointment, and an appointment for the planning department is not the same appointment for the police department or Parks and Rec. They need to have a segment of time where they could come in here and get all of their work done in that period of time without having to go through, jumping through those hoops. At the grocery store, it's like if I had to do that at the grocery store, the guy down the road, all their departments are open, I'd go shop at the other grocery store. We're one city hall. They don't have an option to go anywhere else unless they move. The other communities, honestly, the only one that's closed down is La Crosse. La Crosse County has been open. The other communities have been open. So like I said, there's a lot of people around us that are doing things differently.
Okay, thank you, Carrie. Alder Wolf, and then we'll go to Alder Knott next.
Thank you, Your Honor. So maybe I'm not following. So what I guess two questions. Who isn't open and what isn't getting done? So I'm not sure who wants to take that. I mean, maybe that's more a question for Carrie, because I don't know.
But they just don't have posted hours. The finance and clerk's office is open 8 to 5 right now, and everybody else you have to make an appointment with.
So is that police, parks, and plan?
It's every other department besides finance.
Sign says by appointment, but reality is most of them have people there. I think what the kind of posting was meant to say was call ahead first, just to be sure of it. The staffing issue, we'll use police, for example, that way. And maybe I'll throw this number out. I don't have it in front of me right now, Amanda, so please correct me. For a lot of the other departments, the staffing really is twofold, and you say, hopefully by June, we're through this, and we're back to normal. I really hope so. I think we all do. But for example, in the last 112 days, so just under 4 months, 112 days, and that's calendar days, we've had 22 positive tests in the organization that requires 10 days aside. That's 220 days worth of time in the last 112 days of lost time. And that's where the impact has been, particularly in the police department, where we have not had any admin staff that's been able to sit there. And so I think the suggestion that, say, call ahead is really what we are, but there's no sign there saying we're closed. And even when we have the partial hours, it's, anybody needs to call, anybody needs to interact. There's somebody trying to interact with that. That's been our concern. That 220 days does not include the 48 44 to 48 people that also had to be quarantined due to a close contact. And that quarantine time initially last summer was 14 days. That's been shortened up to 10 days now. But it's also difficult to calculate because you could be on the 14-day quarantine and your last day test positive, and now you have a 10-day positive. So there's been, and that's happened. We've had people in especially police and fire, that have gone almost 3 weeks without being able to be here.
Did you say 44 people? I didn't hear what you said after.
44 people,
44.
correct?
That was people.
We've had 38 people that have had to quarantine as a result of close contacts and 22 positive cases.
Thank you.
Some of those numbers are the same. They would quarantine first and then test positive, but that's the number of days in the last 112 days that we've lost with staffing. And so a lot of it isn't, a decision that I'm trying to say is, that we prefer not to be open. That's incorrect. We prefer to be open 8 to 5 and have staff open 8 to 5. But to a large degree, for some of those departments, I can't guarantee that to the public, in any way of comfort to say, yep, whatever happens, you show up 8 to 5, and someone's going to be there when we have those kind of numbers right now that we found. But I think we're all in the same boat. We all want to be 8 to 5. We all want to regain our normalcy as fast as possible and allow the public that does wish to interact with business 8 to 5 do so.
But you do still have people working from home.
What's that?
But you do still have people working from home.
There'll be people working from home, yes.
So Alder Wolf, are you done with your question?
I-
We're going to go to Alder Knott.
Well, and I guess my second question, part of that was, is something not getting done? I mean, because I think at the end of the day, is something not getting done? I don't know if people have reached out to you or you've heard from constituents. By my volume of calls that I typically receive in emails, I have not received a single one all year. So I don't know if other counselors are receiving emails or contacts, or they're frustrated because they can't get something done at City Hall. I don't know. I haven't received anything. I'm not saying that just because I haven't received something that it isn't out there. I'm just saying people seem to know my number and my email, so.
From the public that I've heard from, and I think, there's different constituencies out there. Those that have contacted me or some of the other department heads I've reached out to with this item on the agenda, the frustration isn't things aren't getting done. The frustration is that they don't have all the tools to operate like they want to. 8 to 5 works for a segment of our population, which is retirees, really, anybody not working, but it doesn't work for anybody that is working. And so I think that the COVID has kind of heightened that interest that people have in how do they interact with their government. That's not 8 to 5. It's beyond that. It's early in the morning. It's on weekends. It's paying online. And, the frustration that I'm hearing is, is having to come in during hours is focus the fact on, they'd rather not come in at all. They'd rather interact just on a normal basis. That all speaks to payments online, credit cards over the phone, forms that we can fill out online that we're not currently doing. And that, I think every department has places that really interacts. That's the only complaint that I've really heard.
Well, and to follow up on that, why aren't we doing that? You know, I understand Plan doesn't do that. I know when I wanted to get some work done through La Crosse County earlier this summer, it was so easy. I could apply for a sign permit online. I could pay for it online. I understand that City of Onalaska had a situation not that many years ago where a lot of the cash handling, the money handling was all routed to the clerk's office. The clerk suite. I wasn't on council at that time, but I came on shortly after that was instituted. So I know there's a whole handbook. There was something that was adopted. I was on technology back starting in 2003, and we even did a citywide survey. And it was overwhelmingly, people said, yes, they want it online. So I think if we're going to get in the century, it's now 2021, we should certainly, unless someone can convince me otherwise, why we aren't taking online payments for planning and site plans, and why we aren't doing that. I think we're doing a disservice to our citizens. So I'll be following up with you and Fred soon about that.
I think the short answer for that is the incident that occurred that other departments who were managing cash on their own led to an incident of theft. And then, so everything gets focused then, as you said, back to finance and clerk's office to avoid that. You know, again, cash management isn't just physical cash, but all monetary transactions.
Well, the other thing too is I remember last year, Mayor Kim, there was a lady on 3rd District and she wanted to pay for a cat license, and in City Hall wouldn't take a debit or credit card on the phone or something. It was on the phone. And Mayor Smith then went ahead and drove to her house and took the money, the application and the money or whatever, and to her house and picked it up on the porch and took care of it here at City Hall. And that just seems to be burdensome and too high of a hurdle, I think, for citizens to have to do nowadays. So anyway, thank you.
Okay, let's go to Alder Knott, and then we'll wrap this up.
I guess in support of Alder Burmeister, the things are being done, but in not all cases are they being done as efficiently. You know, I guess to Alder Person's Wolf comment on, you know, people want to have the technology, the online interaction. That doesn't necessarily mean they want only online at the exclusion of having a face-to-face interaction, you know, person-to-person interaction. There is value in that. There's value in it because sometimes things are more complicated than an individual first thought. Now they got to go to somebody else. And if they're stuck with email, you know, I've always said, this is a personal opinion, but you can feel free to plagiarize if you like to, but I've always said email, as an example, is not communications. It's information sharing, because you push and send, and then you wait until the person opens the email. Maybe they'll get to it right away, maybe not. It's not communication. It's really good for sending a chart or things like that. It's not good for communicating, all right? Likewise, telephone calls, if they're only at home, it's not always easy to get to some people. I've had that challenge myself. But, and then of course, there's the whole piece of, you know, I don't know how the city administrator does any kind of team building on the staff if he has so many people that never come in anymore. How do you build a team like that? And then of course, the interaction with the people themselves. We have a human face, even if it's masked. We have a human face here in this building. When citizens come in, there's no human face on a telephone or an email. There just isn't. So there's certain things that face-to-face interaction, having office hours allows for, that automation does not. And I really think we need to be starting to move towards getting a functional in-person presence here again too. However that, you know, is done, whether it be 4 hours at a time or what have you. But I think it's important to start moving back. I think it's very difficult to justify not doing so when federal offices are back in person. I think we need to be looking at doing that.
Okay, So what do we hear the consensus to be?
Maybe we should have the city administrator give some time to think about it and come back next month with a plan that he recommends.
Are you pointing at Amanda?
Yeah, next month, actually, we're looking at doing the full review because we do have a mixture of mayoral orders, council action resolutions, administrative directives that have been built up over the last year. And we're hoping to basically replace them all with something that's concise and, straightforward. So timeliness is perfect.
Yeah, okay.
To hopefully provide clarity to everything.
So we'll
all of the
consider
issues
that when we go through the emergency orders. We're still going to want to keep, maybe one emergency order on the books because we'll want to be able to still have that for potential grant purposes, et cetera. But maybe we can roll all the ones that we have existing into one. That's what we're talking about for next month. Just FYI.
So we can wrap that all into whatever replaces that if need be, administratively or mayoral or
Some kind of a
office hours and meetings. We can kind of tie them all together.
Okay, any other questions or comments on that? Eric, do you have anything else?
Yeah, good input. Thank you.
All right, good talk. Item 13, report from the city and city attorney Amanda Jackson, update regarding mayoral succession. Do you want me to start or you just want to?
If you want to start, you can go
Okay,
ahead.
so we had gotten together to discuss this. Basically, I know we've discussed it as a group as well. And we just wanted to try to lay out what everyone's expectations were, what to do in the event that the mayor wasn't available, whoever that mayor may be, going into the future. So Amanda worked on that and we'll turn it over to her.
Yeah, so if you had time to read the memo in your packet, there's just a short memo there, but essentially the council president is set as acting mayor in the absence of the mayor. And really, we're talking a true long-term absence. This isn't meant for a weekend away or, a short trip or a short, absence. This is really, I think, multiple weeks, like an FMLA type absence. And that's actually set by statute. So only the council president can be the acting mayor. So we can't actually appoint somebody in that role beyond council president. And so we did have a short meeting to kind of talk through what are the challenges we face, if the mayor is for some reason unavailable for a long period of time. And generally the number one thing that comes up is just having somebody that can sign as the official signature of the city. And so we're just going to put forth a resolution next month going through the succession of signing authority on behalf of the city for when the mayor is unavailable. So, I think we were looking at having it be, council president, then FMP chair, then vice FMP, and kind of just going down the line that way. But that'll be before you next month. So if you have any specific questions related to this, feel free to reach out.
Aldernaut?
And just, I guess, a suggestion when you put that together, looking at the memo, the key piece here, of course, is business that can wait versus business that cannot wait. And how do we define that? And I'm thinking personally, things that come to mind are an immediate safety issue if it is not resolved, or any issue that would negatively impact our budget if it's not resolved. Those are the two big ones. But I mean, as far as not being able to wait until the mayor returns, I think almost all the business we do can probably wait unless, they're on some kind of 5-month tour of the world or something, but so, exactly. So I do think we need to be very, very precise on what it is that we can't wait for.
And in the event of a true emergency as well, if you go under the emergency operations chapter, there are other people that can actually kick in to handle those situations under ordinance, so.
Okay, thank you, Amanda, for your research. We'll look forward to that. Any other questions about that? Just trying to take care of business, be good stewards for our city. Item 14 is closed session. To consider a motion to convene in closed session under section 19.85, paragraph 1, paragraph G of the Wisconsin statutes for the purpose of conferring with legal counsel for the governmental body who is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation in which it is or is likely to become involved. Water pump damage on the 3000 block of Wildwood Wild Rose Lane, Onalaska, Wisconsin, 54650. If any action is required in open session as a result of the closed session, the common council will reconvene in open session to take the necessary action and/or continue on with the printed agenda.
Motion going to close.
Second.
I have a motion by Jim Olson, seconded by Carrie Burmaster to go into closed session. Please answer when your name is called.
Carrie Burmaster.
Aye.
Stephen Knott.
Aye.
Diane Wolf.
Aye.
Jim Olson.
Aye.
Tom Smith.
Aye.
Dan Stevens.
Aye.
We are in closed session. The time is 8:40.